Hey guys, welcome back. Time for a new episode of Paint Talk. So today we're going to revisit the kind of age-old battle between polyurethane and lacquer for guitar finishing. This is kind of a deep argument. Everybody has their preferences. Lacquer is the finish that is still used on a lot of very expensive guitars. For example, the high-priced Gibson Les Pauls. And was used back in the day on old Fenders from the 50s and stuff like that. So it's kind of an older finish, and it reacts a lot differently than poly, which is used on, for example, all of the new Fenders. I believe polyurethane is also used on the PRS guitars currently. So let's keep in mind when I'm saying poly versus lacquer or poly versus nitro. With nitro, I'm referring to nitrocellulose lacquer. Specifically, not water-based lacquer or anything like that, nitrocellulose lacquer. And when I say poly, I mean polyurethane, not polyester. Polyester was used on Fenders for a short time, and it was a failed experiment. It's very durable, but it goes on very thick and hard and really does ruin your tone. Now, please don't bother telling me that finish doesn't affect tone. It's not true, and we can have that discussion in a later video, but not at this point. Anyway, so if you're trying to choose between your poly and your nitro, there are a few things that you need to consider if you're doing a paint job, or for any reason really. Polyurethane is going to be more durable than nitrocellulose lacquer. It's more bump resistant, doesn't scratch as easily, and doesn't react so much to temperature. It also doesn't yellow. Nitrocellulose lacquer, on the other hand, if you bump your guitar into something, it's liable to chip or dent and stuff like that. But it's a more natural feeling finish. It will yellow a little bit over time. It'll age. It goes on thinner, which a lot of people believe is very important for tone. A thinner finish is typically what you're looking for. You can spray your urethanes thin, but it's not quite the same thing. So the lacquer will go on thinner, it will age, and it'll also get, I don't want to say sticky, but yeah, kind of. As you play it and it heats up, it kind of gets a little bit tacky. You can feel your arm sticking to it a little bit. And a lot of people like that, some others don't. The polyurethane is basically plastic once it's hardened, so it doesn't really have those kind of properties to it. As far as applying the finish goes, this is the main reason I prefer polyurethane over lacquer when I'm actually doing a finish. See, polyurethane is a little easier to spray. You can put it on a little thicker and it will still dry properly, whereas lacquer, if you put it on too thick, you're going to end up with a huge mess. Poly doesn't react as much to changes in temperature and in humidity. For example, on a lacquer finish, if you put your last clear coat on out in your garage and it's really hot out, and then you bring it into your air-conditioned house, you might find that it'll crack over the course of a few days or bubble. It reacts to temperature changes in that way. It will expand or contract accordingly, and that can cause some big problems as your finish is hardening. I didn't say curing. Keep that in mind. Lacquer doesn't actually cure. Even once it's fully dried, if it's been dried for a year or two, you can still redissolve it in lacquer thinner, so it doesn't actually cure. It's still the same chemical makeup, it's just dry. What was I getting at there? Okay, so, sorry. Poly, like I said, a little easier to spray, a little less to worry about. Now, when you're putting on a polyurethane finish, you can do, for example, 3 coats in one session, waiting 10 minutes between them, 1 lighter coat and 2 heavier ones. That's what I tend to do. And about 24 hours later, it'll be ready for you to sand it and polish it, and it'll be hard enough for you to use it. It's basically at full hardness after 24 hours. It will continue to dry a little bit and cure over the next couple weeks, anywhere up to a month, but all the solvents are basically gone after that first 24 hours. You can't smell anything. It's pretty much good to go. Lacquer, not quite the same situation. So whereas you could do a polyurethane paint job in a day, once it's ready you could spray your color coats, a couple coats of whatever color you're putting on, 15 minutes apart, wait half an hour and start clear coating and do your 3 coats of clear, and it's ready to polish the next day. Your lacquer finishes can take quite a long time depending on what you choose to do. So for example, if I was starting a lacquer job from bare wood, I'm looking at maybe 3 coats of sanding sealer a day apart, so we're 3 days already. Then I would wait probably 3 days for that to harden enough for me to give it just a light sanding to flatten it out, and then I'd start into my actual color or clear or whatever it happens to be, my dye lacquer, not dye lacquer, dyed lacquer, sorry, tinted. And those I would also wait a day between spray sessions, and you'd go anywhere up to 10 coats with that kind of thing. Like, it can take quite a while because you put it on very thin each time, and you have to give it time to melt into the layer below it, because lacquer dries, and we'll cover that in a minute. Lacquer all becomes one layer. And then once you're finished actually spraying out all your lacquer, once you're done your coats, you're going to want to wait somewhere around a month before you take the time to sand that and polish it. It takes a very long time to harden, and within that month it will be soft. You'll be able to leave an imprint in it with your thumbnail, and you'll also be able to smell it. You know, like, not if you're like me, I've broken my nose so many times I don't really smell anything anymore. But the solvents are still evaporating, so you need to keep that in mind, both for the sake of it hardening properly and also for safety. Those are solvents coming off of there, so you don't want to be hanging the thing in your kitchen to dry for a month. Getting back to the topic, sorry I'm mumbling a little bit. Getting back to the previous thing that I was mentioning there, when you put on a polyurethane finish, it hardens in layers. So you'll spray your first layer, and then when you spray your next coat, that's a separate layer. And that's why the flash times in between coats are very important, because you need enough time for the solvents to evaporate to the point where the next layer won't seal them in, otherwise it'll bubble through. And you need to let it, well, you can't wait too long, because if it hardens your first layer, then your second layer won't stick to it properly. You won't have the chemical adhesion that you need to get those to properly adhere or bond. So most polyurethane comes with technical data. You can look it up online. It just tells you how long to wait in between coats, but typically it's going to be 10 to 15 minutes. Whereas with the lacquer, you're waiting about a day. So urethane is in layers. Lacquer, when you spray it, because of the solvents in it and the way the chemical makeup of it, it actually melts into the layer below it. So you can still build up clear on top of your color, but really it's all going to harden into one layer, which makes it come off differently too if you're removing it. But that's kind of part of what makes it take so long, because it's not drying in layers, it's all kind of melting into itself, and then as one mass it tends to harden and take quite a while to do so. I think that's about all I've got on that. It should be noted, like I said, lacquer doesn't just take longer, it is a more difficult finish to work with. They're both very dangerous, so make sure that you have a respirator if you're planning on spraying them. And that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. Don't forget, this whole series is about answering your questions in a more comprehensive way, so I'm not trying to type out a summarized explanation when I could come on video and show you things and explain in depth. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any ideas for future paint talk videos, anything you're interested in, or if you want to submit a video and show me something that I can give feedback on, that's also welcome. And thanks for watching. See you next time.